What's up, friends? Mike here from Mercado Airwaves. If you missed any one of our past interviews with amazing guests like future Hall of Famer and pound for pound best fighter in the world, UFC flyweight champion Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson,
it's another day at the office, I get to go out there and test my skill.
to award-winning producer, director, and actor Orlando Jones. Orlando, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, sir. I'm good, brother. How you doing?
And all the other interesting guests we've had on. Joining us today is director and writer David Ferrier.
Thanks so much, brother. I appreciate you having me on the show.
MMA legend Chael Sonnen joins us today.
Keep listening to your show. This is great. Thanks, my friend.
Just subscribe to us on iTunes at Mercado Airwaves. And while you're there, please like, review, and rate us, friends. It helps so much. We also have a Patreon for anyone who would like to support the show. Just visit us at patreon.com/Mercado Airwaves and see how you can get all of our interviews ad-free and before anyone else, and how you can get your business or company spotlighted on the show. Follow us on Twitter at mmercado2333. Like us on Facebook at Mercado Airwaves. Subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/MikeMercado2333. And if you would like to see what we're up to behind the scenes, follow us on Instagram, MikeMercado2333. Thanks for listening and all the support.
If you would like to support Mercado Airwaves, visit us at patreon.com/Mercado Airwaves. Find us on iTunes at Mercado Airwaves. Keep up to date with the show on Facebook at Mercado Airwaves. You can see all of Nicole's work at typingwhentipsy.wordpress.com. You can follow Alex on Twitter at Mercado21Alex. Follow Mike on Twitter at mmercado2333 and on Instagram, MikeMercado2333.
What is going on, friends? Welcome into another episode of Sports from the Couch. I'm your host, Mike Mercado, and I want to thank you so much for making us a part of your day and for joining us here on the Mercado Airwaves Network. We have a busy show today. The MLB playoffs are kicking off. The NFL Week 4 wrapped up. And, of course, your comments after Mitchell Trubisky's huge game. But I also have a 1-hour talk with baseball expert and play-by-play guy, Paul Chivari, friend of the show. We talk about the 2 tiebreaker games that happened and the MLB playoffs moving forward. It was an awesome conversation. I can't wait to get to it. So we're going to have a quick recap of the NFL, and we're going to dive deep into playoff baseball. But before we get to anything, here's a quick message. What's up, friends? Mike here from Mercado Airwaves. If you missed any one of our past interviews with amazing guests like future Hall of Famer and pound for pound best fighter in the world, UFC flyweight champion Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson,
It's another day at the office, I get to go out there and test my skill.
to award-winning producer, director, and actor Orlando Jones. Orlando, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, sir. I'm good, brother. How you doing?
And all the other interesting guests we've had on. Joining us today is director and writer David Ferrier.
Thanks so much, brother. I appreciate you having me on the show.
MMA legend Chael Sonnen joins us today.
Keep listening to your show. This is great. Thanks, my friend.
Just subscribe to us on iTunes at Mercado Airwaves. And while you're there, please like, review, and rate us, friends. It helps so much. We also have a Patreon for anyone who would like to support the show. Just visit us at patreon.com/Mercado Airwaves and see how you can get all of our interviews ad-free and before anyone else, and how you can get your business or company spotlighted on the show. Follow us on Twitter at mmercado2333. Like us on Facebook at Mercado Airwaves. Subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/MikeMercado2333. And if you would like to see what we're up to behind the scenes, follow us on Instagram, MikeMercado2333. Thanks for listening and all the support. Week 4 is in the books, and it started off with the bang as the LA Rams beat the Minnesota Vikings. An unbelievable game by Jared Goff, really making a case for himself. Is he the MVP this season? Is it still Patrick Mahomes, who showed out again on Monday Night Football? We have a lot of season left to see how this plays off, but an impressive 38-31 win for the LA Rams. The Texans beat the Colts 37-34 in overtime. It was the Packers all over the Bills, 22-0. The Bears show up big time in Soldier Field. Mitchell Trubisky has his big wow game, the game we've all been waiting for after all these other rookies and second-year quarterbacks have been balling out. They beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 48-10. We'll get to that in just a little bit. The rest of the NFL, the New England Patriots are back, beating the Dolphins 38-7. Just like every other year, almost like ESPN scripted it, we always say, are the Patriots done? And then they come out and beat a division rival. Cowboys beat the Lions 26-24. Zeke ate up a lot of yards and killed a lot of people in fantasy football, including yours truly. Bengals 37, Falcons 36 in a shootout. Julio Jones still no touchdowns. Jets lose to the Jaguars 12-31, losing Leonard Fournette. No idea the timetable of when he will be back, which hurts your boys' fantasy team. It was the Eagles losing to the Titans 26-23, and we're starting to see that maybe the attrition of making a Super Bowl run catching up to the Eagles. Maybe it's the crazy thing in the NFL. The Browns lose to the Raiders 42-45, and this one was a little upsetting in overtime, as well as that Titans-Eagles game was in overtime. Before I forget that, the Raiders-Browns, Baker Mayfield, like, hits the truth. And there was a lot of plays that should have gone the other way. I'm not a conspiracy. I'm not one of these guys that likes to blame the ref, but Cleveland fans have some stuff to be upset about. It was the Seahawks over the Cardinals 20-17 in a much closer game, but that's what happens when divisions rivals play each other. Saints 33, Giants 18. It was the Chargers over the 49ers 29-27. Ravens over the Steelers 26-14. And of course, everybody talking about whether Le'Veon Bell will be back. He has to come back before week 10, I believe, in order to get his paychecks, to get paid for the rest of the season. And we'll see. We'll see after what happened with Eric Reed, and we'll definitely see how this plays out. This was not... Connor's a nice running back, but Le'Veon Bell is one of the best players in the NFL, and you're seeing it right now. Pittsburgh doesn't look right, and maybe it's a Tomlin thing. I like Mike Tomlin. There's obviously some discourse going on in Pittsburgh. And it was the Chiefs 27, the Broncos 23 on Monday Night Football. Patrick Mahomes showing out again. Is he the best quarterback of that draft class last year? Only time will tell. But for all you Bears fans, why don't we go into this crazy matchup? Of course, for Tampa Bay, Ryan Fitzpatrick was benched for Jameis Winston. Ryan Fitzpatrick going 9 for 18, 126 yards and 1 interception. Jameis Winston 16 for 20, 145 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions coming back from his suspension. And quite honestly, that the magic is over. Tampa Bay 2-2. Surprising they won in New Orleans, and just the fact that they were as hot of an offense as they were, but that Chicago Bears defense is for real. And Mitchell Trubisky 19 for 26, 354 yards and 6 touchdowns. And here's some stuff I wanted to take a look at. We had, if you're looking at it, when you listen to us here on the show, we look for targets and we look for how active people are on the team. And it's not just for fantasy football, it's to see who do they trust when they're running an offense. And look at this. Receptions. These are receptions, not yards or anything. Just how many times they caught the ball. Tariq Cohen, 7 receptions. Taylor Gabriel, 7 receptions. Trey Burton, 2. Allen Robinson, 2. Josh Bellamy had 1. The ball was going around. I mean, that in its own is big when you see, it's what you see in all the great offenses. It's what you see in Green Bay. It's what you see in New England. It's what you see in New Orleans, Kansas City. When there's multiple weapons and there's a clear-cut star on your wide receiver and you have a quarterback to get the ball to them, the whole offense gets involved. And you could see it with LA right now with the Rams. Everybody gets involved. Kupp, Cooks, Woods, even Gurley. When you have multiple weapons that can do multiple things with a good scheme, it comes up huge. And we saw that with the Bears this past week. Now, what cures you is the fact that you played a horrible defense. Probably the worst defense in the NFL in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And now you're going into a bye week. But the Bears, in their own right, have been in every single game. And you can make an argument they should be 4-0. That is not out of the realm of possibility. And it really spotlights how big of a blunder that game against Green Bay was. But all in all, it goes to, I'm one of the harshest critics for Mitchell Trubisky. I am. Because I'm a big fan of Patrick Mahomes and Deshaun Watson. And the fact that you moved up so many picks to trade with San Francisco to get Mitchell Trubisky, to go up to the second pick, to move up one spot in that draft. Maybe pushing, who knows what kind of player you could have gotten with those that equity that you gave up. But with that in mind, if the consensus thought was that he was the best quarterback in that draft, he hasn't shown it yet. While we were seeing flashes from Patrick Mahomes, while we saw flashes from Deshaun Watson, we've even seen it from Baker Mayfield, Josh Rosen, Sam Darnold, Josh Allen. We've seen glimpses already. And then obviously what Jared Goff is doing. And then we finally got that game. I honestly could sit here and say we were going to go years without seeing a wall game. We were going to see a lot of good games, a lot of consistent games, but I never thought we were going to see that wow moment. And for it to come almost on cue, almost to slap people in the face and kind of be like, oh, really? It's impressive. Now, the real question is, can you do that again? Will you do that again? You're in a bye week. And we know how, and it's pretty, to me, that's the most that's the thing I think is going to have people most divided. Obviously, you want your bye week when you're a little bit tired, when you're a little deeper in the season to kind of get healthy and recover, right? But in this case for the Bears, I think it's probably best case scenario. You got the taste of a big win out there. You got the confidence of a big win out there. And now you got time to build on it. That's huge. And it's something that this young offense needs. That these guys need together, because obviously nobody in the preseason was really playing a lot. So you need to come up with some time. And you're almost seeing that in the league, right? Where it's kind of all the offenses are kind of catching up. Everything is kind of coming in together because we haven't seen. They didn't play. None of them played during the preseason. Now, here's the question I think most people are asking about the Bears. Are they for real? That defense is. And if this offense is a smidgen of what it looked like against Tampa Bay, yeah. I mean, if this team averages 23 points, they're going to win more games than they lose. And in the NFL, that's all it's about. It's that slim margin. It's that difference. You got to win those coin flip games. And with the week 5 bye, going to week 6 to play the Miami Dolphins, I mean they're there for the taking. And the next few weeks, the Bears have the Miami Dolphins at Miami. New England comes to Chicago. The Jets come to Chicago, and then you go to Buffalo before you meet the Detroit Lions in week 10. So they're going through the AFC East, and that New England game everybody has circled. But you can't look past Miami. And you saw what Buffalo can do to Green Bay. So it all comes down to Trubisky again. It was a nice showing. We need to see more of it. It needs to be consistent. But all in all, I don't have any nitpicks of the game. He was looking down the field. He was checking all his targets. He was accurate. He was accurate on the run. That defense balled out. Something else you can ask for. It was an amazing week 4 and so many offensive games, and it doesn't end there too. It's gonna keep getting crazy. So before we go on to week 5, why don't we take a quick peek at the standings in the AFC East? It is the Dolphins with 3 leading the division, 3-1. New England 2-2. Buffalo 1-3, along with the New York Jets. In the AFC West, it is the 4-0 Chiefs, the 2-2 Broncos, the 2-2 Chargers, and then 1-3 Raiders, who got their first win over Cleveland, a suspect win. In the AFC North, it is the 3-1 Bengals and the 3-1 Ravens, the 1-2-1 Browns, along with the 1-2-1 Steelers. It's crazy. The NFL is crazy, guys. I keep trying to tell you. In the AFC South, it is the 3-1 Titans, even with it hurt Marcus Mariota, no running game. It is the 3-1 Jacksonville Jaguars, the 1-3 Texans, and the 1-3 Colts. I thought the Texans and Colts would be a lot better than that, but it's still early in the season. We'll see how that works out. And in the NFC, it is Washington at 2-1, the Cowboys at 2-2, along with the defending champion Philadelphia Eagles, and the Giants at 1-3. In the NFC West, it is the Rams at 4-0, looking like the powerhouse in the NFC. The Seahawks at 2-2, the 49ers at 1-3, really missing Jimmy G, and the Cardinals at 0-4, working for that number 1 draft pick. In the NFC South, it is the New Orleans Saints 3-1, the Panthers 2-1 coming off a bye week, the Buccaneers 2-2, and the 1-3 Atlanta Falcons. Is that going to turn around? I had Falcons Chargers in the Super Bowl. Not looking good. And in the NFC North, the 3-1 Bears, the 2-1 Packers, who will not go away all season, I promise you that, the 1-2-1 Vikings, and the 1-3 Lions. Crazy stuff, guys. Some crazy stuff. But in week 5, it doesn't end. It always continues in the NFL, and the fun won't stop because on Thursday Night Football, it is the New England Patriots and the Indianapolis Colts. Then we have on Sunday the Denver Broncos and the New York Jets. In a divisional game, the Green Bay Packers and the Detroit Lions. It is the Giants versus Panthers, Titans, Bills, Falcons, Steelers, Ravens, Browns, Dolphins, Bengals, and the last game of the afternoon, Jaguars, Chiefs. And later on into the afternoon, it will be Raiders, Chargers, Vikings, Eagles, Rams, Seahawks, Cardinals, Niners to wrap up the 3 o'clock games. I'm really looking forward to that Vikings-Eagles games, a rematch of the NFC playoffs. Both teams are going to need a win. That is going to be very interesting. Both teams are going to need a win. On Sunday night, it is a battle of Texas as the Cowboys takes on the Texans. Brand matters, guys, I guess. And in Monday Night Football, it is Washington versus New Orleans, a showcase maybe for Drew Brees on the national stage once again. And again, really fast, some key matchups. Keep our eye on that Packers-Lions game for all you NFC North Division fans. Want to see what happens between Baltimore and Cleveland. That should be a lot of fun. How about Falcons-Steelers? Another game where somebody needs a win. So that's 2 games right away between the Vikings, Eagles, and the Falcons-Steelers, where both teams desperately need a win. I'm very interested to see how that works out. It's never a dull day in the NFL.
What's up, friends? Mike here from Mercado Airwaves. If you missed any one of our past interviews with amazing guests like future Hall of Famer and pound for pound best fighter in the world, UFC flyweight champion Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson,
Another day at the operator to go out there and test my skill.
to award-winning producer, director, and actor Orlando Jones,
Orlando, how you doing,
Buddy,
buddy?
sir. I'm good, brother. How you doing?
and all the other interesting guests we've had on.
Joining us today is director and writer David Ferrier.
Thanks so much, brother. I appreciate you having me on the show.
MMA legend Chael Sonnen joins us today.
Keep listening to your show. This is great. Thanks, my friend.
Just subscribe to us on iTunes at Mercado Airwaves. And while you're there, please like, review, and rate us, friends. It helps so much. We also have a Patreon for anyone who would like to support the show. Just visit us at patreon.com/Mercado Airwaves and see how you can get all of our interviews ad-free and before anyone else, and how you can get your business or company spotlighted on the show. Follow us on Twitter at mmercado2333. Like us on Facebook at Mercado Airwaves. Subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/MikeMercado2333. And if you would like to see what we're up to behind the scenes, follow us on Instagram, MikeMercado2333. Thanks for listening and all the support.
If you would like to support Mercado Airwaves, visit us at patreon.com/Mercado Airwaves. Find us on iTunes at Mercado Airwaves. Keep up to date with the show on Facebook at Mercado Airwaves. You can see all of Nicole's work at typingwhentipsy.wordpress.com. You can follow Alex on Twitter at Mercado21Alex. Follow Mike on Twitter at mmercado2333 and on Instagram, MikeMercado2333.
Yes, it is time for my favorite part of the show every week when we get to talk to you guys on social media after a huge Bears win and sometimes after a huge Bears loss. Either way, the comments are amazing. Let's get into it. This was after a huge win for the Chicago Bears against Tampa Bay. Mitch Trubisky throwing 6 touchdowns. Let's see what y'all have to say. Here we go. Mitch didn't play up to his or probably anyone's standards. Today he played as expected against a defense that frankly looked like the Bears defense circa Mel Tucker years. Threw a few better balls. Wow. Okay. Can't be too happy. Dear Bears fans, your QB threw for 6 touchdowns against the worst passing defense in the league. Every QB has thrown for 350-plus yards against them. You're only 1 game of Green Bay, and Minnesota isn't going to keep eating shit every week. It's cool to be excited, but you beat a declining Seattle team, a Tampa team that can't stop anyone, through the air, and you struggle to beat possibly the worst NFC team in Arizona. Wait until Week 10 or so to declare them a playoff-bound team. Anyone looking at this Bears offense right now and going, who the hell are these guys? Who the hell are these Bears and where do they come from? Bears fans, calm down. I just heard 3 people say Bears are going to the Super Bowl. Don't you say that like every year, LOL? Say that in December. Where are all those Trubisky haters today? All right, last one of the day. I'm predicting that the Chicago Bears offense mojo is going to transfer over to Wrigley Field into the Cubs bats. Well, they did. For one day. And we got more about that coming up here on the network. Thank you guys for always posting funny comments. Stay tuned because coming up next, we have a huge interview with Paul Chivari all about the MLB Tiebreaker games, the wildcard games, the NL and AL divisional series, the AL and NLCS, and of course, a World Series preview and so much more here on Sports from the Couch on the Mercado Airwaves Network. I'm your host, Mike Mercado.
What's up, friends? Mike here from Mercado Airwaves. If you missed any one of our past interviews with amazing guests like future Hall of Famer and pound for pound best fighter in the world, UFC flyweight champion Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson,
Another day at the operator to go out there and test my skill.
to award-winning producer, director, and actor Orlando Jones,
Orlando, how you doing, buddy?
Buddy, sir. I'm good, brother. How you doing?
and all the other interesting guests we've had on.
Joining us today is director and writer David Ferrier.
Thanks so much, brother. I appreciate you having me on the show.
MMA legend Chael Sonnen joins us today.
Keep listening to your show. This is great. Thanks, my friend.
Just subscribe to us on iTunes at Mercado Airwaves. And while you're there, please like, review, and rate us, friends. It helps so much. We also have a Patreon for anyone who would like to support the show. Just visit us at patreon.com/Mercado Airwaves and see how you can get all of our interviews ad-free and before anyone else, and how you can get your business or company spotlighted on the show. Follow us on Twitter at mmercado2333. Like us on Facebook at Mercado Airwaves. Subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/MikeMercado2333. And if you would like to see what we're up to behind the scenes, follow us on Instagram, MikeMercado2333. Thanks for listening and all the support.
All right, we are back here at the lovely studios that Nicole has decorated for us. Somehow she still puts up with me in the middle of October. And it must be October because we're going to be talking some MLB playoffs because we have friend of the show, one of my good buddies, Paul Chivari, back on the show. What's up, Paulie?
Oh, what's happening? It's the most wonderful time of the year, if I could talk.
How excited are you, man? We finally got our tiebreakers. I mean, it's pretty crazy. We had 2 tiebreakers today, all in the National League between the Rockies and Dodgers and the Cubs and Brewers. And we have a date set for Tuesday evening at 7 p.m. at Wrigley as the Colorado Rockies will take on the Chicago Cubs. The winner will take on the Milwaukee Brewers, who now have home field advantage throughout the National League playoff race. So why don't we start with the first game of the playoffs? Because I think we can all agree the playoffs started today with the tiebreakers. I understand there's tomorrow, but the playoffs started, and we're seeing the best of the National League start already. So let's start with the first tiebreaker of Cubs-Dodgers. Now, for me, as a Cub fan, everybody knows, just if you haven't listened to the archives, Paul and I cover the beats of the MLB, but in our hearts of hearts, too, you could tell he's a Sox fan, I'm a Cub fan, and we have 2 perspectives of this, because there's a lot of, in this particular series with the Cubs and Brewers, there's a lot of former White Sox, there's a lot of former Cubs, and there's just like weird entanglement between these 3 organizations the last few years. So why don't we start off at Wrigley? On the Milwaukee side, what impressed you the most, besides Christian Yelich, being the MVP after the crazy September he had? What impressed you the most that you saw, let's say, the last 2 weeks from Milwaukee?
Last 2 weeks, I think it's just their bullpen and just how resilient or top to bottom as a ball club. I mean, they went on an insane tear over the last few weeks just to get to this point and create that game. I want to say they won like 9 out of their last 10 or something ridiculous like that in order to get there, and then including today's win, 8 straight games that they had to win. So, I mean, this is a team that I was doubting them in when they were doing good. I know they had a good roster, but I just didn't think they had enough starting pitching to carry them the rest of the way. I thought this was the Cubs' division to win, and but as the summer wore on and got towards the end, it really felt like the Cubs were kind of limping their way with bullpen, and of course, some of the injuries that kind of bit them during the season, and of course, like a guy like Wilson Contreras didn't meet expectations that we wanted him to have as the everyday catcher. Whereas Milwaukee, I mean, they acquired some great talent. They had a strong bullpen, so I mean, I think we saw what should have. Based on what we saw this year, the Cubs weren't strong enough to take it themselves. Discount Milwaukee because they're good enough to get to the final, and you take it down to 1 game, and the Brewers were hot. We always say baseball's gonna baseball,
right?
And I was asked last night, well, who do you think's gonna win? And I was like, well, the way Milwaukee's playing, I would think they're gonna win, but every time I think something's gonna happen, the opposite is going to happen. So I thought for sure with the Cubs being at home today and the fact that the Cubs just, still have some magic. They didn't look awful these last few weeks. I thought the Cubs were going to win against the Brewers in that tiebreaker game. But I think Milwaukee proved that they're for real. And now that they have that comfort of home field advantage in the National League side of the playoffs and having that best of 5 series starting at, on Friday at Miller Park, on Thursday.
Yeah.
I think they're a team that you don't want to tango with in a best of 5. It might go all 5. You never know, but they have such a tough lineup, and I think they have enough pitching to get them to the championship round. But we have yet to see who they're going to end up playing. But it's I'm sorry to Milwaukee and their fans that I discounted them in the middle of the season.
No, and I think a lot of us did. The Cubs had a divisional lead since late July, and they never really looked back. And I think a lot of it has to do, like you mentioned it too, with Milwaukee. Just they never stopped coming forward. Like they're that boxer. They got jabbed in the face throughout the whole season, and they just kept coming and trying to take over the ring control, and they kept pushing the fight. And before we get to what positives you took away from the Cubs, let's take a look at a little bit of the downfall, or I should say at the very least, some of the red flags that we've seen with the Chicago Cubs. Again, it's part of the beat that we cover, so let's dig a little bit into this. Obviously, injuries were a big part of this Cubs team. And this, in no way is this an excuse for this Cubs team, because while, yes, 95 wins is great. 94 wins, I guess, right, is great. Going to your fourth straight playoffs is great. A chance for your second World Series is great. A chance for, your third straight NLCS is great. I get it. All that is your fourth straight, I guess, NLCS. I love it. It's all great. But the facts remain this. You had players that digressed in talent. Willson Contreras was supposed to be a 300 hitter, 280 hitter with 20 home runs at catching. And we didn't see that this season. Addison Russell, and you can hear in the archives my thought about what happened with Melissa Russell. Addison Russell took a step back, and he did. I mean, he's taken a step back 2 straight years in a row. Javier Baez was your MVP for 5 months and 2 weeks, and Christian Yelich was on his tail the entire time. So was Carpenter from St. Louis. It was a great NL MVP race this year, by the way, and maybe we'll talk about that during the winter meetings and whatnot. But I think it can't be mistaken or it can't be taken lightly that the Cubs also spent over $200 million for 2 pitchers that did nothing for them. And we're talking about the margin of error was, Paul, 1 game. It was 1 game. And so many things went wrong for the Cubs side, as many went right. And so many things went right for Milwaukee. Before we get into what's positive about the Cubs, there is a certain magic that you talked about the Cubs having because talent gets you to that position. But Milwaukee has a little magic in their own back pocket.
Oh yeah, they definitely do, and I think I think it really goes when you see that lineup top to bottom. I mean, they had problems at second base getting production out of Jonathan Villar and Eric Sogard earlier in the year. They solved that problem by getting Jonathan Scope. Right. And then, out of shortstop, I mean, really their weakest positions, I think, were catcher and shortstop. And that's because Orlando Arcia just has not lived up to his expectations. And then, of course, catcher is always kind of a hard position to get production out of. And, people kind of rag on Manny Pena, but there's been times where he has been clutch. And I know they go with Eric Kratz today, for whatever reasons, whether he works well with Jhoulys Chacin or Kratz is just hotter than Pena right now, what have you. But you and I were kind of joking about if the Brewers are going to win today, here we are saying this about an hour before game time. We're like, it's going to be something kind of unheard of, or not unheard of, unexpected, right? With who steps up big today. Of course, Yelich has a big game, and of course, they. No, but Orlando Arcia having a career game today, 4 for 4, and that's a big catalyst as to why the Brewers are. And I think it's just when you look at that batting order, it's enough to the. You got to find playing time. You got to find out a way to somehow fit Aguilar, Ryan Braun, Travis Shaw, and Moustakas, and you only have about 3 positions you can put for those 4 guys. So they have so much depth that they even have guys off the bench that can hit the ball for you. So it's just one of those teams where they're just built to hit, and they have enough starting pitching to get them far. Chase Anderson and of course Chacin, Zach Davies. Has not really lived up to expectations, but at the same time, he's a good left-handed pitcher who's been there before. So you never know how he's going to step up come playoff time. But of course, their bullpen is just insane with, Knable. The fact that they've switched between Knable and Hader all season as, who exactly is their closer. And I think, when the throw all that out the window and really you've seen Josh Hader with some of the success he's had. I think that was earlier this year when I think he struck out 9 consecutive Cincinnati Reds. was back in like May or something like that. But, Hader has that capability, and sure, he struggled down the stretch, but that's a lefty that can just throw gas. And then you have Corey Knebel that has, such a great breaking ball, and it's just some good back of the rotation stuff. So, I mean, you've got that combination. Plus, as always, the Brewers got to pick some good games off the White Sox to add to their bullpen. Xavier Cedeno and Joakim Soria both got in the game today against the Cubs. So, I mean, you've got so much depth at all positions with the Brewers. And sure, maybe their starting pitching isn't the prettiest on paper, but it's enough to win ball games, especially if they can keep you into their pitching. You've got the hitting that can take you further.
Now let me ask you this: we're heading into this, but we've already seen what happened in the tiebreaker. We've kind of seen that in the beginning of the season, the Cubs pretty much had Milwaukee's number, and then towards the second half of the season, Milwaukee turned that around and they went on that crazy run, and they really put it on the Cubs throughout the entire season. I think though, and it just comes to. At this point of the season, I think the one thing that, not just as a baseball fan, but as a Cub fan, that you're finally seeing consistent playoff baseball, you start to see what good teams look like. You know what I'm saying? Like, take the fandom away. When your team that you watch more consistently, when you're not just covering a beat, when you watch them play good teams over and over again, you start to see what tendencies happen, what tendencies are there that consistently show up in playoffs. You saw it with the Giants for the longest time. You saw it with the Cardinals for the longest time. You're seeing it with the Cubs right now. And you see a lot of that in Milwaukee. I will say this about the Brewers, though. Or at least this particular series, this rivalry that's going on right now between the Cubs and Brewers. I don't think anybody's head and shoulders better than the other one. I still don't. And until maybe it's just my biasness, maybe it's just my eyes doing that until I see it. But if you're asking me in a 5-game series or in a 7-game series, the only team that can get Milwaukee are the Cubs, and I think it's vice versa. In a 1-game series, it's a coin flip. That's why they call it the coin flip game, But if you're asking me if come Thursday the Cubs have somehow gotten past Colorado, which is no easy matchup, and we'll get to that in a little bit, I'm not, as a Cub fan, and then looking at it from the outside, objectively, I'm not worried about a 5-game series with Milwaukee because your bullpen is only as good as that day's starting pitcher. And if that starting pitcher can't go 5 deep, 6 deep, you're going to have problems. And here's the thing. In a 1-game situation, that can happen. But are you going to do that 3 straight times to the Cubs? The Cubs never lost 3 straight times this season. The Cubs are a very resilient team with their backs behind the wall. And you and I talk about this all the time about other sports. Baseball's momentum is a little different than other sports. I know a lot of people like the cliche, but baseball's the next day starting pitcher, that's its momentum. I don't believe that. I think there is some psychology to baseball, though. There is this idea of the Brewers caught you a lot faster than you thought they were going to. The Cubs probably thought, and maybe they'll never admit this, but they thought they had a few more years of controlling the division. I don't think they saw the acceleration of Milwaukee come as fast as it did. I don't think they thought that Milwaukee adding positional players and not pitching at the trade deadline or the winter meetings would be so effective like it was. But in a 5-game series, I still think right now in 2018, it might change in 2019, but in 2018 in a 5-game series, I still put the mortgage on the Cubs. Not by much, but right now I do.
Oh, no question. I think you raise a good point. And, the X factor is you've got Joe Madden in that dugout versus Craig Counsell. There's so many years of experience being in these situations. Not to mention, I brought up how it's not pretty on paper looking at the Brewers starting pitching, but look at the Cubs. I mean, you've got some stone cold killers in John Lester and Cole Hamels being, playoff proven lefties be past their prime. They still have shown you at times this year and in recent years that they're capable of giving you great games when the pressure's on. And then, how impressive has Jose Quintana been? I mean, I had my doubts about him with his first playoff run last year, but I think he held his own pretty well. And of course, he pitched a heck of a great game today. I mean, he kept the Cubs in that ball game throughout. Not to mention you have, Kyle Hendricks. I mean, you've got enough on that Cubs starting staff that you can trust your guy no matter what day it is. Like, sure, you'd love to have Lester pitch. Of course, Joe Madden's going to have John Lester pitch in that 1-game playoff against the Rockies. There's no better person to have an elimination game than John Lester. But you have anyone that you can go to for the Cubs. Not to mention, you can bullpen your way through these games. The Cubs have a deep enough bullpen. I think it's despite the fact that they lost Brandon Morrow for the season, and I don't know what the story is on Stroke.
It's up in the air. They're supposed to be able to get him back. He said that he's going to be ready for a playoff series, but like we're going to get to in just a few minutes, we don't know if they're going to get past tomorrow. But go ahead, finish up your thoughts.
I'm just saying, you still have Brandon Kinsler is a good pitcher, and he was a reliever with Minnesota last year at times, so I mean he's got that experience of being a late innings guy. You have Justin Wilson at times have looked really good aside from today. You've got De La Rosa, who I think has really come out of nowhere.
Garcia.
With that role. And that's the thing is, we got to see what the Cubs playoff roster is going to be, but I don't know if Jaime Garcia is going to be on it. But Jesse Chavez is another guy, though, that's another guy. You have enough veterans in that bullpen that I think you can get away with the bullpen by committee. Are you dying on me over there?
Yeah, I swear to God, I just drank some coffee and it went right down the wrong tube. Oh. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Repeat that thought, please.
Oh, I was just going to say you have enough veterans in that bullpen, though, where I think you can bullpen by committee your way through it. And I think you've got enough. Let's just say it is going to be Cubs Milwaukee because logically that will have to be it if the Cubs get past these. But the edge in starting pitching has got to go to the Cubs. Bullpen might go to the Brewers, but at the same time, don't rule out that Cubs bullpen.
So let me ask you this then, Paulie.
Sure.
We're at this point now where we know what the NL wildcard game is going to be tomorrow. So we'll kind of circle back to Dodgers. We'll circle back to Cubs Brewers because I think we both are kind of leaning that way, that it might be that in the NLDS. But we don't know for sure. Baseball will baseball. So on the other side, in the West Coast, somehow, some way, another division ended up in a tiebreaker game here on Monday as we're recording this, fourth wall being broken. And the Dodgers did what I wanted the Cubs to do, what I think the Brewer fans wanted to do, whether the results were. They wanted an early lead and they wanted the team to maintain it. And that's what we saw over here in L.A. I think Colorado has a lot of nice pieces, obviously. The problem is Colorado good enough? Not do they have the talent. Are they good enough as a team to go to a wild card game in Wrigley and win after that type of? I guess my concern is, I don't even know what's a concern. My observation is the Cubs lost a heartbreaker. Say what you will. They were in the game to the very end. So were Colorado. But even if it's just by a little bit, the bigger heartbreak were the Cubs. In this sense, it was a closer game. They were the division leaders. There's a little bit more emotion to it. There's more of a rivalry between Milwaukee, Chicago than there is Colorado, LA. So I feel like there was different emotions in these two games. But here we are. We know what's going to happen on Tuesday. We know the Cubs have basically played it, almost 40 days and 40 nights, Colorado has had a crazy run with Arizona falling off at the end of the season, but LA right there the entire way through. So we come to Tuesday at Wrigley Field. What's going to happen?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, these two teams played each other early in the season, and if you remember with just what the weather was looking like back in April, right. I don't think it gives you a clear indication of what these two teams were capable back then. Off the top of my head, I want to say the Cubs took 2 out of 3 at Coors Field, in 30-degree temperatures up in the mountain. I think a couple weeks later, maybe a week later, they got back to Wrigley, and I want to say the Rockies took 2 out of 3. I'm mistaken. It was either Cubs took 2 or Rockies took 2. I don't remember out of the 3. But at the same time, I want to say Lester got a win off of them. I think John Gray pitched. I was high on John Gray going into the season, but John Gray, you never knew which guy you were getting, and he just happened to be the really good John Gray. When he came, I mean, you almost have to throw that series completely out the window to clue you in as to what will happen in the National League Wild Card game. So I don't know. I mean, how are the Rockies when they're away from home? And they're better at home than away. And of course, the offensive numbers are better, at home than away, and the pitching numbers are going to be way better away than at home.
Right.
But at the same time. Versus left-handed pitching, we can look at it like that. Rockies are better against lefties. They're hitting 272 on the season against lefties. They go up against John Lester tomorrow. So I mean that's going to be a big thing. OPS is 798 when they're facing left-handed pitching. So I mean I think that's one split that you can look at that would kind of give you a better indication of what the Rockies are against the Cubs. And that's another lineup right there in the Rockies. They've got a lot of pop in that lineup, with Charlie Blackmon at the top. And I heard some stat about Blackmon. National League center fielders, 3 straight seasons, 5 home runs and 100 RBIs. You got Blackmon, Willie Mays, and I forgot who the third one is. But, I mean, of course, we're probably talking about another legend.
Right.
Yeah, and you got that at the top, DJ LeMahieu has not been as strong of a hitter as he's been in certain seasons. He's had some injuries. You got David Dahl was just named the player of the week. He had one of the best weeks ever in his career. And then you got Arenado and Story in that lineup, and I'm not even Carlos Gonzalez and Ian Desmond, So I mean, you got a lot of pop in that lineup, and Matt Holliday coming off the bench. It's a good lineup. It's just is pitching strong enough is all I would worry about with the Rockies. And that's another team, in a all hands on deck elimination game, they might be able to bullpen their way out of it. But, the Cubs at Wrigley Field, it's hard to bet against them. But here's a fun little fact for you here. So the Cubs, when they're facing elimination in the playoffs, do you know what their record is since 2015?
So it's 2015, their record against elimination, I will say that they are 6-1.
There's been 5 games.
Okay. So 5 games. They're 3-2. Yeah, right.
3-2.
Yeah.
But here's the thing: all of the losses were at home. The 2 losses were at home, and the 3 wins were on the road. So at Pittsburgh in the wild card game in 2015.
Right.
At Cleveland when they won the World Series, and then at Washington last year in Game 5 of the divisional series. The 2 losses were the 2015 NLCS when the Mets swept them. Right. So, I mean, I wouldn't read too much into that being a home game.
Right.
And then let's see the other one.
The NLCS last year.
Yeah, the Dodgers last year, which at the same time I wouldn't read too much into that one last year.
That was a gas team.
Yeah, they had no fight in that game against the Dodgers. Yeah.
But here's the thing, Paul. That's an interesting – I'm glad you brought that up because a lot of people are saying that this team is gassed. I don't think they're gassed. I think they're hurt. I think they're injured. I think that's what you're seeing more than an energy depletion. But I don't think the Cubs are gassed by any means. I think they have a run in them. The problem is when they do or die. And I think that is what you wanted to avoid. That's why today was a playoff game. Because anything can happen. The Cubs are a better team than the Rockies. You could I don't know if you could say that about the Brewers. The Cubs may not be a better team than the Brewers. The Cubs are a better team than the Rockies. But the Rockies can go into Wrigley tomorrow, put up 4 runs in the first inning, and shut it down. And the season's over. It can easily go down. LeMahieu, it could be the LeMahieu game. It could be a home run and 2 doubles with 3 runs scored by himself.
Yeah, well, and that's what I'm saying, though, is pitching, though. Kyle Freeland coming in tomorrow to pitch for the Rockies, and that's not a guy to – he's a little younger. I mean, the Cubs didn't look that great today against Jhoulys Chacin. Not that he's the best pitcher in the world, but he had a good year for the Brewers. The Cubs didn't look good against Miles. They got by Trevor Williams last Thursday. But it's how are the Cubs going to come out against good pitching? And that's what I think people are saying. They're hurt, or at least what you're saying, like they're weak. I think as far as the bullpen, they're gassed. As far as their starters, I think you're going to get what you expect out of your starters. As far as the hitters go, you're just not seeing the pop in the lineup that you normally see against the type of pitching that they're going to see in the playoffs. Like they played against Chris Archer. Granted, Archer didn't have the best numbers this year, but he's a very good pitcher. Cubs get completely blamed by him at home. So, I mean, how are they going to come out against Kyle Freeland? And that was a guy that they in April. But at the same time, like I said, the temperature was half as much as it's going to be tomorrow. I mean, we got 6 with no precipitation in the forecast tomorrow. So I like the Rockies' odds, but at the same time, I just think the Cubs, they get just this veteran, strong playoff magic, and so my gut says Cubs win. But at the same time, I wouldn't be surprised to see the Rockies win. I wouldn't be surprised to see this go really long into extra innings. I wouldn't be surprised that the Rockies end up just shellacking them, like an 8-0 by the fourth inning, like a 8-3 final or something like that. Who knows? But as far as the Cubs being terrors to the Rockies, I don't think it's going to happen. I think if the Cubs win, it'll be close. If the Rockies win, it could be anything.
Yeah, it's so crazy how it's just come down to that margin error. But I guess it just goes back to in 5 elimination games, this team loves to have its back against the wall. They really do. They're one of those rare teams that almost embrace it. They look to have a target on them. And I think this is the first time in a long time that they felt like almost the hunters. Like it doesn't feel like they're the hunted except for Milwaukee. Like Milwaukee, you could totally feel it that they are aiming for the Cubs. And to them, beating the Cubs means you're essentially the step closer to that World Series, But why don't we put a little break onto the National League? Let's swing over to the American League for a little bit. I think this one's just a little bit, just as much up in the air because all the teams look good. But why don't we start off with what series? Well, let's start with Yankees Athletics. Obviously, I think we'll just stick around with the wild card games for now. Peek a little bit to the future. Yeah. Let's go ahead. Yankees Athletics. What do you got going?
Oh, sorry. I don't think they've named pitchers yet for that series. But I'm going to be. I'm looking at Mike Fiers versus Luis Severino in that one. Who I think it's going to be. Nothing's been named yet, but Severino's the most well-rested starter. He's your best guy if you're the Yankees. It's a must-win game. I don't see why the Yankees would not go with him unless Aaron Boone really plans to bullpen his way through the game, which he could. He absolutely could because the Yankees bullpen is insanely talented. Betances and Chapman and Robert. And then, gosh, I mean, all those guys that they got, plus they can move, Lance Lynn into the bullpen. And, gosh, I'm trying to think who else they even have here, like either Sabathia, Happ, or Tanaka, whoever you decide to, you're gonna have one starter, maybe have them go 2 innings and then try and bullpen your way through it. I don't know. The A's are a little beat up pitching-wise. Really, you would have wanted to have Sean Manaea in the season. He was your best starting pitcher for the A's. But he gets injured down the stretch, and now you have to go with Mike Fiers. Yeah, you've got Brett Anderson. Yeah, you've got Blake Trinan in the pen and some decent relievers. But at the same time, the Yankees lineup is a little bit more fierce than the A's, I think. Despite you do have some boppers in that lineup with, Matt Chapman, Matt Olson, Chris Davis. There's some talent there for sure. At the same time, this is the Yankees we're talking about. So, I mean, even last year when they did the same wild card game, Twins went up early, with Severino on the mound, and the Yankees still ended up winning that game. So, I think this year's A's is better than last year's Twins. Is slightly better than last year's Yankees.
If you would like to support Mercado Airwaves, visit us at patreon.com/Mercado Airwaves. Find us on iTunes at Mercado Airwaves. Keep up to date with the show on Facebook at Mercado Airwaves. You can see all of Nicole's work at typingwhentipsy.wordpress.com. You can follow Alex on Twitter at Mercado21Alex. Follow Mike on Twitter at mmercado2333 and on Instagram, Mike Mercado2333.
What's up, friends? Mike here from Mercado Airwaves. If you missed any one of our past interviews with amazing guests like future Hall of Famer and pound for pound best fighter in the world, UFC flyweight champion Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson,
another day at the operator to go out there and test my skill.
To award-winning producer, director, and actor Orlando Jones. Orlando, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, sir. I'm good, brother. How you doing?
And all the other interesting guests we've had on. Joining us today is director and writer David Ferrier.
Thanks so much, brother. I appreciate you having me on the show.
MMA legend Chael Sonnen joins us today.
Keep listening to your show. This is great. Thanks, my friend.
Just subscribe to us on iTunes at Mercado Airwaves. And while you're there, please like, review, and rate us, friends. It helps so much. We also have a Patreon for anyone who would like to support the show. Just visit us at patreon.com/Mercado Airwaves and see how you can get all of our interviews ad-free and before anyone else, and how you can get your business or company spotlighted on the show. Follow us on Twitter at mmercado2333. Like us on Facebook at Mercado Airwaves. Subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/MikeMercado2333. And if you would like to see what we're up to behind the scenes, follow us on Instagram, MikeMercado2333. Thanks for listening and all the support.
Oh, so we're doing baseball math now. So we're going, in that case, then I think the Athletics are going to win because of the idea that we look at this series as, this is where I'm going to go at, okay? Something weird is going to happen Tuesday or Wednesday night. I think the probability of something crazy happening is more likely to happen in the American League, where these teams haven't played in a few days, and we really don't watch a lot of athletic baseball because it's in the West Coast. It's not pretty. The Yankees had that first wild card, spot was cinched up a long time ago, and the Astros had that West, clinched up a long time ago. I think the crazy wild card game is going to be in the American League. I think it's this game, and I think it's going to be one of those reversal of the Derek Jeter game where he got that out at home. I think this is that game. Because here's the thing. The Yankees have a lot of talent, but the Yankees aren't special. Like, there's no – I don't sit there saying Aaron Boone's going to manage a good game. I don't think that Aaron Judge, mind you, yeah, he's 6'9" and hits hard home runs, but is he one of baseball's great players? Like that because he wears a Yankee jersey, he is. If he were a Pittsburgh Pirate, he's not better than Andrew McCutchen at Andrew McCutchen's prime. You know what I'm saying? So if on paper, sure, the Yankees always look sexy and they have the talent. The crazy game tomorrow of this wild card is going to be the Oakland Athletics getting into a divisional series. If I were to tell you this in April, that the Athletics were going to beat a over 91 win Yankees team, you would think I'm crazy. But here we are.
Yeah, but we can't rule out the fact that there's Judge and Stanton in that lineup, and
it's a killer lineup.
Into the season, going into the season, everyone was calling these guys, Maris and Mantle Part 2, and the Yankees stepped up. I want to say they were the league leaders in home runs. They definitely proved themselves capable of being a good hitting team.
Right.
It's just a matter of is Judge ready to go? Coming off of his injury, has he? I haven't looked at his stats, but I know that they haven't been pretty since he's been back. Is he ready to
What do you think? Before we break that down, I've been fascinated with this idea. Is Aaron Judge not just a star? A star is being famous. Is Aaron Judge a star in Major League Baseball?
When he's healthy, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. I saw him playing in spring training. This must have been like 2016. I was watching, Yankees playing like probably the Phillies in spring training, and I'd always heard about Judge, but the first time I actually got to see him, do his thing, and I was like, well, this guy's gonna be a stud when he's up. And I remember texting our guy Christian Simpson, big Yankees fan. And I was like, dude, this guy Judge is gonna be insane. Well, little did I know that Aaron Judge was going to be the breakout superstar rookie of the year in 2017. I thought he was going to be good. I didn't know he was going to be that good off the bat. I don't think that's a fluke at all. And I think he showed that this year before his wrist injury. The problem is right now he's playing hurt. I think he was, I have it in front of me, 9 for 41, which is a terrible 220 batting average since he came back on September 14th, and he only hit one home run since he's been back, and that was last Friday. So, Aaron Judge is really going to have to step up big, and hopefully he's healthy in order for the Yankees to be successful. I think Giancarlo Stanton had been a little bit under the expectation this year. I know he got off to a really rough start, a lot of strikeouts, but it's still a where you've still got, Andrew McCutchen doesn't even have to play as the best player on that team, and you still have him. Luke Voit stepped up big last week for the Yankees at first base, and that filled a hole that was there with Greg Bird as the first baseman. You still have, Gleyber Torres coming up this year, and he's hot and cold, but Gleyber Torres, when he is hot, he is hot. You got Miguel Andujar, who more or less is the rookie of the year in the American League this year. You've got another fierce lineup top to bottom and another great bullpen and just enough starting pitching to get you there because, Masahiro Tanaka has looked really good at times. CC Sabathia has looked pretty good in this stage of his career. Compared to a few years ago when before he went in. He's still a veteran. He's still CC. He's still a lefty that can throw hard. And you got Luis Severino anchoring that rotation, not to mention Shea Happ and Lance Lynn, who are serviceable as a 4 and 5 in a that rotation. I mean, the Yankees can take you deep in a series if you don't catch them right away. So, I mean, yeah, we're talking about one game, and anything can happen in one game. And you're telling me that the Yankees are better than the A's, but hey, tomorrow half the Yankees might come down to the flu, and the A's might just whoop up on them. We never know what's going to happen in one game. So, but a lot of people slept on the A's. I'm one of those people. I had the A's finishing possibly 4th or 5th in the division at the start of the season. I thought the AL West was going to be a little bit tougher. I thought the Angels were going to be a better team. I thought the Rangers still had something left in them. They were this year. I slept on the A's. I thought Billy Ball wasn't really going to get them far, and the A's definitely deserved to be in this game. They definitely were one of the top 5 teams in the American League. I don't know if they're strong enough to take on the Red Sox in a best of 5.
Right.
And if they get past the Red Sox, I don't know if they're strong enough to get past the Indians or Astros in a best of 7.
Right.
But the A's definitely belong in this category.
And it just takes one win, 27 outs. That's all it is. That's why, even on this side, you wanted to stay away from that coin flip game. The difference is the Yankees and Athletics had that option taken away from them earlier in September, and Milwaukee and Chicago, LA and Colorado didn't. And LA and Milwaukee take advantage of it. We're going to get to that in just one more second. But let's finish up in the AL really fast. We're going to have you on next week as we get ready. Hope maybe we'll be deeper into the NLDS and ALDS, or we might be ready for NL and ALCS. But who do you got in the wild card game? Put your money on the table. Athletics, Yankees. Where are we going?
I'm going Yankees. I think Luis Severino, he's pitched already in one of these games. He's, another year older, another year wiser. And the A's are hurting right now. I think, Mike Fiers, though he's a good pitcher, he's not the best guy that you want to throw out there. And that's assuming that Fiers is the guy, but I think he's due in the rotation. I think Severino is the most logical to the Yankees. I got to say Yankees win that game.
My brain tells me Yankees. My gut tells me Athletics. We'll go Athletics on this end. I think we're due for something crazy. It's that time of year, and we already saw with the tiebreakers. I think we're going to see it come Wednesday night. I think the Athletics are going to pull something off. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens in the Bronx. But let's go back to the National League. Wrigley Field, Tuesday night. You've seen the Cubs play as much as any team in Major League Baseball, up close and personal. You know what Colorado can do at Colorado. We know what the home splits are. One game, elimination. Winner goes to Milwaukee. Who do you got?
I think logically it's the Cubs, but I think, you say you want to see something crazy.
You're using my chaos mat. Okay, yeah, I can see this.
I think it's the Rockies.
Yeah, I can see
the
that.
Rockies are completely that team that slips in and takes it away from the Cubs. I mean, like I was saying, a tough lineup. Kyle Friedland's a good pitcher. I think they still have Wade Davis at the back there for the, how crazy would that be if Davis ends up getting a save against the Cubs? The guy that the Cubs should have signed as their closer that probably would have been healthy right now for them.
About that
though he didn't have as good of a year this year as he did last year with the Cubs. How fitting would that be if Davis ends up closing out that game in the bottom of the 9th inning?
I'm not mad at that chaos, Paul. I'm not mad at that chaos. Look, I'm a Cub fan, but if we're strictly objectively talking about chaos, I'm not mad at that either.
Yeah, so that's what I got. I mean, my brain says Cubs, but I think my gut says Rockies on this one. I just really feel like, despite all the travel, I think they're tested and I think they're hungry.
Okay, let me ask you this:
they want to make up for what happened last year when they lost to the Diamondbacks.
And that's where I was going. You have both teams that have some type of bad taste in their mouth. Okay, unlike in the American League, this wild card game in the National League does have a lot of past implications to it. So let me ask you this: we know what you think it's going to take for the Rockies to win, because it's going to need to take their best game to win. I don't think it's going to take the Cubs' best game to win. With that in mind, how do the Cubs win and go to Milwaukee?
Lester gives you probably a quality start, maybe two earned runs, and then you trust your bullpen all the way through. And the way we've seen Joe Madden manage bullpens, granted they've had a 40-man run, but Madden's gonna, if he's got to throw 5 different relievers in the last, 3 hits. So I think that's what we're gonna see. 6 innings, 2 earned runs, and from there, you might just get enough hits. Maybe Baez cracks a home run. Maybe Wilson Contreras becomes a hero. I mean, he hit a home run over the weekend, I want to say, his 10th one of the year. Maybe he ends up being the hero. I mean, you can't rule out any of those Cubbies, but, maybe Rizzo jacks one, maybe Schwarber jacks one. Hayward almost had one today, but I think the wind slapped it down into Yelich's glove. I think you're going to get that timely home run that you've seen the Cubs do over the past few years, and especially this year. And I a strong start out of Lester in order for the Cubs to win. But I could also see the Rockies just slapping Lester around, having Madden have to go to that bullpen early, and games decided by the 7th or 8th inning, and Anthony Rizzo's brought out to pitch, or maybe Kyle Schwarber's brought out to pitch.
God, I hate you. You guys can follow Paul Chivari on Twitter at Paul Chivari, Chivari. Paulie, before we get up out of here and we get ready for the NL wildcard and the AL wildcard along with the divisional series, I want to hit a couple points before we get out of here. We've been running a little long, and that's what we get here on Sports from the Couch. We really appreciate you guys joining us on the Mercado Airwaves Network, of course. Friend of the show, good buddy Paul Chivari joining us today, breaking down these tiebreaker games and heading into the MLB playoffs. Let's go into this, buddy. We're gonna stay close to home. I got a thought first, and tell me if I'm crazy. I think best case scenario for the Cubs is what's going to happen right now. I think if you were going to play the Brewers, you want to play them early, and you want to play them with home field advantage. I think this is the one series where you don't mind going to your opponent's field, and it has nothing to do with the fact that it's Wrigley Field North or Wrigley has become Miller Park South. It's nothing to do with that. The fact is you're an indoor stadium, and this Cubs team loves to hit at indoor stadiums. You won't see that anywhere else in this playoffs. They have never had that. In this Cubs team, as built, this new regime has never had the opportunity to not have weather be a factor in their games in late October. I think to them, they're that veteran team is like, cool, we'll take any little advantage we can get. We know how we play in these different scenarios. Again, these are all Major League Baseball players. They all know how they play in the rain or when it's cold, whatever. But it's the little things, those little minute percentages that make the difference of teams winning because they're all that great. So to me, this isn't the worst thing. Of course, you want to stay away from the elimination game. But fact is, as long as you can see the divisional series, I think the best thing for the Cubs were to play the Brewers, even though they're the buzzsaw right now of the NL. The fact is they've never really done anything to make me think they could annihilate the Cubs. They could beat the Cubs any given day, but I don't think they intimidate the Cubs. I don't think that anybody intimidates this roster. So, am I crazy thinking that though?
Not at all, and I would take out the objectivity of it. I mean, it is Wrigley Field North. No offense to Brewers fans, but if the Cubs fans travel well to a series between the Brewers and the Cubs, it's going to feel like 5 home games, or 7 home games. No, 5. I guess best of 5 in the divisional round. Yeah, and like you were saying, I think the Cubs would be the worst opponent for the Brewers out of anyone else. I mean, it's such a close rivalry, and the Cubs have so much of a history at Miller Park with the fans going out. Chris Bryant hitting his first career home run there.
Zambrano.
I was going to say the Zambrano no-hitter, and even the follow-up the next day when Ted Lilly had a no-hitter going into the 5th inning. I mean, granted, that wasn't the Brewers, and that was 10 years ago. But,
right.
Park, I mean, obviously there's a little bit of magic for the Chicago Cubs in that building up off the highway in Milwaukee. And, I would, if I was the Milwaukee Brewers, I would be praying that the Colorado
I agree.
playing us in 2 days.
I agree. Wholeheartedly. And more than any other playoffs, I feel like this is one of those weird moments where, you know what I call this? I call this boxing and UFC, man. Where one team has beaten this team has beaten that team, and that team beat that other team. And they've all kind of eaten each other, and it's rock, paper, scissors. But to me, baseball, okay, again, objectivity taken away from it. Baseball, us,
The world deserves, whether you're a Sox fan, whether you're a Cardinals fan, whether you're a Cincinnati Reds fan, whatever, name a rival, doesn't matter. Baseball deserves Cubs, Brewers 2018 in a 5-game series. It deserves to see Christian Yelich and Kane against Rizzo, Bryant, and Baez. We deserve to see Hader out there. We deserve to see that. This baseball season has come down. The two best teams in the National League will eliminate each other way before the NLCS. We deserve, as baseball fans, to see that series go at it. And I think that's why Colorado has a good chance of screwing up the whole script. But, buddy, for me, it's like to me if we were to finally see Cleveland White Sox. Or we were to see, you know what I'm saying, like that, or White Sox Tigers. We're like, we deserve to see this. That 2015 season where the Cubs played Pittsburgh and then went to play St. Louis was phenomenal. It was amazing. You don't see that in sports because how often do the divisional teams do that? Especially when you're in a city like Chicago that never saw consistent winning. So as a baseball fan, I know we would love to see Colorado. They'll give us a great series anyway. But that heavyweight fight is Cubs, Brewers, NLDS.
Oh, I think that's one of the best-looking series on paper, although I really do like that Indians-Astros matchup. And, of course, everyone in the whole the mothership and the East Coast bias is praying for that Yankees-Red Sox.
Oh, my God.
But at the same time, I'm thrilled that if it's Yankees-Red Sox, it's in the divisional round
Sure.
and not the championship round.
Sure.
But I really do like maybe it's just because I'm an American League guy. Maybe it's because the American League was just very predictable this year. I really do like that Indians-Astros matchup, and I like the winner of that series facing the winner of Red Sox-Yankees or Red Sox-A's. I'm assuming the Red Sox are going to get to the championship round. I just think they're way too good of a team, but I like whatever the American League is going to give me, including the wild card game. I like whatever is coming out of there, but you're absolutely right. As far as the National League goes, Brewers-Cubs, I think it's been such a good rivalry. Maybe we're looking at it through local rose-colored glasses, Right. But at the same time, it's been such a great rivalry where, like you were saying, in the beginning of the year it was the Cubs. At the second half of the year it was the Brewers. Today it was an airtight game that was decided in the 8th inning.
Right.
And the Brewers didn't even name their pitcher until, 3 hours before game time?
Right.
So, I mean, it's such a great rivalry right now that I don't think Braves could match it. I don't think Rockies Brewers could match it. I don't think Cubs Dodgers Part 3 could match it.
Which is interesting because we would not have said that 2 months ago. Well, maybe a little bit longer than 2 months, but we would, so. At the very least, we would not have said that spring training.
I guess if you told me that for sure the Brewers are making the playoffs, I would say yes. I would say absolutely. But I mean, did I see it coming in March and April? No, I absolutely did not. I did not think the Brewers were going to be good enough to make the playoffs. I think I had them just missing the playoffs or the wild card game in my projections.
You can check it out actually in our archives. We have Paul Chivari, who joined us a few months back on the relaunch of Sports from the Couch, and actually I was kind of going back through. We actually did pretty good. I don't know exactly who they were, but I think we only missed one team. We actually nailed it pretty hard.
Oh, yeah, so I mean, I had Yankees winning the AL East instead of the Red Sox, but other than that, I had those 4 teams set. I knew AL West is what I was thinking for the remaining wild card. I had Angels instead of A's. Okay, I mean, it's so impossible to actually get it all right. No expert can get it all right all the time. I think in the East, of course, I'm in love with the Washington Nationals, but I think we broke up this year. I don't think I'm in love with them anymore. And then, of course, I had Cubs winning the division. I had that wrong, but at the same time, they're there. I had the Dodgers winning the division, but gosh, they just got by the skin of their teeth. I think I had the Diamondbacks and the Rockies.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I had the Rockies and the Cardinals, I want to say.
I thought you had the Diamondbacks, but I could be wrong.
It could have been Diamondbacks, yeah, because I think it was
for sure St. Louis
Brewers,
was there.
Diamondbacks, Rockies. It was just kind of roll the dice, see what happens. I mean, I didn't believe in the Mets, but I think I had them second place. I thought the Braves and Phillies would take a step up this year. I had no idea that they were going to be Braves winning the division and Phillies actually giving some fight up until the other week. Of course, the Marlins were easy to write off. The Reds were easy to write off. The Padres were easy to write off, and the Giants ended up about where I thought they were. Where they look good on paper, but not that good. So I mean, I think when I pretty much nailed it, aside from being the final 10 teams absolutely correct. But now here's the toughest part, and this is what you and I do every sit here and we're like, oh well, this team's gonna win. No, this team's gonna win, and then we're completely off by the end of it.
I've been right one time, but that's only because I said it for 28 straight years.
Yeah, well, I mean, and do you really believe in this Cubs team to be World Series champions?
No. I think they could win it. Do I think that they're going to win it? No, I don't think they're going to win it. I don't think they're going to win it this year. I thought they were going to September 1st.
If they won the pennant, I think they're going to get steamrolled by whoever wins the American League.
Really?
I think absolutely. I think American League teams are fierce this year. Throw up Red Sox, Astros, Indians, maybe not so much Yankees. Give me one of those 3 teams I mentioned. You've got some killers there, just stone cold killers.
All right.
Pitching staff, the bullpen, the lineups top to bottom. I don't think the Cubs could last against those 3 teams.
Interesting. So let's go ahead before I go to the last question that I wanted to hit on, and we'll wrap this bad boy up. What is, as of October 1st, and subject to change because the playoffs are crazy, what's the World Series right now?
Yeah, so out of the National League, I've been saying for the last few weeks, I think expect the unexpected, expect something stupid to happen. I think it's going to be Brewers or Braves.
Ooh,
your
okay.
Pennant winner. But at the same time, the Braves are a good team too.
Yeah.
I just think they're a little young, and I think Dodgers are probably a rough team to start with, but I like the Brewers, and then in the American League, it's like I want to say Astros, but I want to say Indians, but you need just immaculate pitching. I got to say Red Sox. I think you don't win 100 that lineup, and then without Chris Sale for part of it down the stretch. And not be taken lightly, So I think it's going to be Red Sox over Brewers, and I think no matter who the matchup is, I think the American League takes it this year. I think it's just such a strong American League this year. You had 3 teams with 100 wins this year. For most of the season, I think the playoff projected American League teams from I want to say the middle of the summer, the worst team. Like the second wild card team had a better record than the Cubs did, who had the best National League record back in June or July, I think, when this was starting to happen. So I think it's just a hard American League this year. I think that's where your winner is going to be no matter.
That's fat. I can't. You see, here's the thing. I can't disagree with you either because it could easily go that direction. They've seen it all season. We've seen the American League dominate, but there was one thing that the National League did dominate in, and that was the MVP race. It was unbelievable. It was up in the air for the longest time, and I think there was a guy who was in the driver's seat for a long time, and Christian Yelich came up, and he said, "Hold my beer." So the question is, if Christian Yelich wins it, the question more is, when did Christian Yelich beat Javi Baez for it? Was it 2 weeks ago? 3 weeks ago? It wasn't that long ago, but when did Christian Yelich win the MVP, you think?
I couldn't pinpoint a moment, but it was probably about 2 weeks ago. It was close. I mean, I could still make a case for Baez. And, I mean, you know me, I was doing everything I can all year to try and not have Baez as the MVP, but that was hard. It was impossible for me to do that. And really, if you want to split hairs here, sure, Yelich's numbers are better. Sure, there's probably, arguments for WAR. I don't know. I looked at it the other week, and Baez had a better WAR according to his baseball reference page here, because Yelich's defense was spotty according to those metrics versus Baez. But you want to talk about the definition, and we do this every year. We do this every year in every sport. The word valuable, I think Baez was more valuable to the Cubs than Yelich was to the Brewers. And I think it should not be overlooked that Javier Baez played, 3 positions this year?
Yeah.
And was – I mean, I could make cases against Baez. I think there's just holes sometimes in his playing. I think he swings too hard, swings through the fences a lot. I think he does commit errors. But at the same time, in terms of what Baez meant to that team and why they're still here today on October 1st, I think Baez is more valuable than Yelich. But if I had to vote, Yelich is winning MVP this year.
I agree, and I think it was right around 2 weeks ago when the division started kind of coming down together. Right when he hit that first cycle, maybe one of his many cycles the last few weeks. It was probably when he hit that first cycle where it became evident that there was something different in his run. Javi was more consistent all season. I think that's fair to say. But Christian Yelich literally carried a team the last month. And yes, the other 5 months matter. They do. But I think there's optics to this also. Christian Yelich looked more like an MVP at the end of the season. Javier didn't. Javi has a lot of holes in his game. So when Javi looks bad, he looks really bad. And Christian Yelich isn't like that. He's more easy to the eyes if you're a baseball purist. So I think it kind of came down early. But Paulie, we're an hour into this, and it was only 2 tiebreaker games. We have wild card games. We have the divisional series. We have the American League Championship Series and the National League Championship Series. And it all comes to an end in the World Series itself. Buddy, I can't wait to do this again next week, as we might have divisional champions. We might have championship series ready to go. We might be at the thick of things. Either way, it's going to be awesome. So before we get out of here, what is something you want to look out for the next 2 days before we head to the divisional series?
I say the divisional series, at least 1 or 2 of those series are going 5 games. So you and I will be talking about, deciding games next week. Something to look out for? I don't know. I think whoever the stronger starting pitcher is between the Rockies and Cubs is going to carry his team to victory. We've seen games blown late. I think the stronger starter will be on the winning team. And then as far as the American League playoffs go, expect look at the pitching matchups in Cleveland, Houston. I don't think they've named yet, but I think you can't in the first 3 games, however it's going to stack up, whether it's Verlander, Keuchel, Cole, or Kluber, Bauer, Carrasco, however it's going to line up. I think you're looking at probably one of the sweetest pitching matchups in recent history in that series.
It's going to be great, buddy, and I cannot wait. We appreciate you being a contributor for the playoffs here on Sports from the Couch. Paul Chivari, follow him on Twitter at Paul Chivari, PaulChivari. Follow him also at Baseball Weekend Journal. They're on Twitter at Baseball Weekend. And Paul will be here all playoffs long. And for all you Chicago fans, as much as it will hurt us, yes, we still will be covering it if for some reason they don't make it out of Tuesday. We still will be covering it, and Paul will be all over it for us. Paulie, thank you so much for taking some time for us, man, here on Sports from the Couch. We can't wait for it. It was already a fun. It's only the first day, and officially it wasn't even the playoffs, and we're already having a ton of fun.
Thank you, brother. I'm happy to help and contribute whenever you need me.
You're the best, man, and we'll be back here on Sports from the Couch on the Mercado Airwaves Network. A huge thank you to Paul Chivari for joining us today. You can catch him every week throughout the MLB playoffs here on Sports from the Couch. And a huge thank you to each and every one of you for joining us here today. You can follow me everywhere in the universe. I'm on Twitter at mmercado2333. Like us on Facebook at Mercado Airwaves. I'm on Instagram, instagram.com/MikeMercado2333. Download us anywhere you get your favorite podcast at Mercado Airwaves. And while you're at it, please like, rate, review, and share us. It means the world to us, guys. Subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/Mercado Airwaves Network. A huge thank you to all our sponsors at patreon.com/Mercado Airwaves. If you'd like to hear our interviews ad-free or before anybody else, just check us out at patreon.com/Mercado Airwaves. And of course, a huge thank you to our friend who power everything here on the network at Munch Art Design. Check them out and give them a like at Munch Art Design. Thank you to Paul Chivari. Thank you to each and every one of you. Enjoy the games. We will have a full preview of the NBA next week as the NBA preseason kicks off. I actually went to a game this past week. Quick preview. They look pretty good, the Chicago Bulls do, and the NBA looks a lot of fun. So we'll be digging into that and, of course, everything that is MLB playoffs and the NFL. Thank you to each and every one of you. We'll see you in the next episode of Sports from the Couch here on the Mercado.
What's up, friends? Mike here from Mercado Airwaves. If you missed any one of our past interviews with amazing guests like future Hall of Famer and pound for pound best fighter in the world, UFC flyweight champion Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson.
Another day at the operator to go out there and test my skill.
to award-winning producer, director, and actor Orlando Jones.
Orlando, how you doing,
How are
buddy?
you, sir? I'm good, brother. How you doing?
And all the other interesting guests we've had on.
Joining us today is director and writer David Ferrier.
Thanks so much, brother. I appreciate you having me on the show.
MMA legend Chael Sonnen joins us today.
Keep listening to your show. This is great. Thanks, my friend.
Just subscribe to us on iTunes at Mercado Airwaves. And while you're there, please like, review, and rate us, friends. It helps so much. We also have a Patreon for anyone who would like to support the show. Just visit us at patreon.com/Mercado Airwaves and see how you can get all of our interviews ad-free and before anyone else, and how you can get your business or company spotlighted on the show. Follow us on Twitter at mmercado2333. Like us on Facebook at Mercado Airwaves. Subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/MikeMercado2333. And if you would like to see what we're up to behind the scenes, follow us on Instagram, MikeMercado2333. Thanks for listening and all the support.
If you would like to support Mercado Airwaves, visit us at patreon.com/Mercado Airwaves. Find us on iTunes at Mercado Airwaves. Keep up to date with the show on Facebook at Mercado Airwaves. You can see all of Nicole's work at typingwhentipsy.wordpress.com. You can follow Alex on Twitter at Mercado21Alex. Follow Mike on Twitter at mmercado2333 and on Instagram, MikeMercado2333.